So this month was an exciting time at the animal rehab clinic. If we flash back almost a year ago to the time we first met Sunday and said about the big journey of making her a prosthetic limb, well, she has started walking on it. And even more exciting than that, we were able to get her walking on our pressure plate treadmill so we can actually assess her gait and see exactly how well the prosthesis is working. So you can see in the video up in the top right as Sunday is walking, that's represented on the digital version of the treadmill on the left. You can see exactly where she is walking, and this produces a report where we can see clearly what is happening with her. So the first thing we see when we open up the report is a mapping of her forepaws. Her front paws are here, back paws are here, and this one here is her back left, which is the prosthesis. The thing that stands out is how high and red that is. That indicates there's a lot of pressure going through there. Now, there's a few reasons for that. Number one, she's missing a lot of joints and tendons and muscles through that lower part of the leg, so it won't be able to absorb shock quite so easily. Secondly, the prosthesis is firm itself. That's something that Matt's working on to try and give that a little bit more spring. Thirdly, the surface area. The prosthesis is quite small compared to the paw of a dog, so that creates a lot of pressure in a small area, whereas these other ones are quite widely spread out. And probably the fourth thing is that she just hasn't developed enough strength and coordination to really walk on that properly. So on the next page of the report, it breaks it down into the step lengths of your front and your back, your left and right, as well as stride length, cadence, velocity. Stance phase is the percentage of time that the dog is putting pressure on that paw, whereas swing phase is the inverse of that, the time it's spent in the air. Typically what we look for here is symmetry between the legs, and you can see with Sunday it's not very symmetrical at all. The back left is not stepping very far at all. The other thing here is that on the front ends, so her front right, which is the diagonal opposite one, is actually not swinging through the air that far, and that's a stability thing. She's really planting that down on the ground to allow her to walk properly. Now, the next thing we look at is the center of pressure analysis, which is more or less the center of gravity and how that looks like when Sunday walks. It does resemble something of a contemporary piece of art. But what it is, it's a bit like if you strapped a pen to Sunday's chest and just traced where that went. This is the journey that takes. Now, every dog is different, but what we want to see is something repeatable and like a pattern. And you can see with this, there is really no pattern to it. It is all over the place. And lastly, what we have here is just a nice, pretty way of analysing everything that we saw before. Sometimes looking at it differently, it does help you pick up a couple of things. We can see down here these big, long green steps. It looks like her front right is stepping the whole way through the gait cycle, but what that actually was is that her particular gait, the software is confusing her front right with her back right because they're landing in the same place. And we do see that with dogs that do have an unusual gait because they're compensating through injury. But just like everything else, that should improve as she gets used to the prosthesis.